Dannielynn is the living legacy of Anna Nicole Smith.
The reason I think I am a target is because I am a happy person.
She was dubbed a gold digger by the media. Courts criticized her for being greedy. Despite her marriage to an 89-year-old billionaire, Anna Nicole Smith was much more than that. She was a poor girl from a tiny town who fought for 15 years in court, made it to the highest court in the land, and then passed away without ever seeing a dime. At the age of 18, her daughter Dannielynn is exposing her mother's real identity and the paranormal occurrences that indicate her departed mother is keeping tabs on her. On November 28, 1967, in Houston, Texas, Vicki Lynn Hogan gave birth to Anna Nicole Smith. Her parents separated when she was just 2 years old. Mexia is a little town in Texas with a population of around 6,000. Her mother, V. May Hogan, reared her there. It was difficult for her to grow up because her father was gone for a long time. She had a hard time with her schoolwork and making friends at school. Even though she enrolled in Mexia High, she struggled to keep up with her classmates. She changed schools in 9th grade, but she dropped out of school in 10th. The aspirations never faded, even in her adolescent years. Life was taking a different turn, but she still admired Marilyn Monroe and aspired to stardom. At the tender age of 14, she left school in 1982. Working as a server at Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken in Mexia was her way of trying to make ends meet. The work introduced her to Billy Wayne Smith, a fry cook who was 16 years old. Quickly becoming close, they got married on April 4, 1985, when Anna was 17 years old. She gave birth to their son, Daniel Wayne Smith, on January 22, 1986, a year later. Her marriage did not pan out as planned. According to Anna, Billy was possessive and envious. He forbade her from socializing with others. Midway through 1986, she'd had enough. She attempted a fresh start by abandoning Billy and relocating to Houston with their son Daniel. The meager wages she earned from her odd jobs at places like Red Lobster and Walmart weren't enough to keep them afloat. She had a hard time getting by since money was scarce. When all other possibilities were exhausted, she took a job dancing in strip clubs. It was a necessary evil, but it wasn't her life's grand design. Then, in 1992, she took a risk and sent naked images of herself to Playboy magazine. It was a daring move. Everything changed because of that gamble. In March of 1992, she graced the cover of Playboy when Hugh Hefner and his crew saw her potential. She was strikingly beautiful and resembled Marilyn Monroe, which caused her to stand out. She quickly rose to prominence as one of Playboy's most famous models after being voted Playmate of the Year in 1993, a mere year later. She felt a sudden shift in her fortunes. Not long ago, she was scraping by as an employee at fast food joints and strip clubs. By this point, she was getting invitations to special parties and being shot for magazines. Although fame opened doors, it also meant she would be under the microscope of the media at all times, a challenge she would face throughout her life. A substantial modeling contract was extended to her by Paul Marciano, co-founder of Guess Jeans, in November of the same year, 1992. The charisma that had mesmerized Playboy's viewers was palpable to him as well. She was continuing to use her birth name when Marciano proposed a change. Anna Nicole, a name that would become famous all across the globe, was born from their union. Her debut advertising campaign for Guess left an indelible mark. Taking over for supermodel Claudia Schiffer, she became the face of the company during a period when lean, waif-like women were all the rage. There was a new vibe in the business because to Anna Nicole's curvaceous physique and Hollywood glitz. Inspired by Jane Mansfield's legendary style, the campaign's black and white pictures became classics in an instant. Her fame skyrocketed as a result of her collaborations with major international labels like Lane Bryant and H&M Hollywood was another possibility that came with modeling fame. She was cast in 2 big-budget films in 1994. She co-starred with Leslie Nielsen as Tanya Peters in the Leslie Nielsen comedy Naked Gun, 33 1/3, The Final Insult. Despite the film's success, critics were divided on her portrayal, and she received a Golden Raspberry Award nomination for Worst New Star. The Hudsucker Proxy, directed by the Coen brothers and set the same year, featured her in a supporting part. Though she had a little role, it was highly acclaimed by critics. Anna Nicole continued going even when some were critical of her. Becoming a brand was her goal, not only a career in modeling or acting. She was a 1993 H&M model who appeared on huge billboards all around Norway and Sweden. Her time spent working with Lane Bryant disproved conventional beauty standards and demonstrated that plus-size models could hold their own in the fashion industry. Trim Spa, a manufacturer of dietary supplements, chose her to represent the brand later in her career. Despite the controversy and legal complications that ensued from the endorsement, it managed to keep her in the spotlight. She managed to remain relevant despite the criticism she received. It was in the Houston strip club Gigi's in October 1991 that Anna Nicole Smith met millionaire J. Howard Marshall II. Since she was just starting out in the dance industry, she was a 24-year-old working the day shift to make ends meet. She didn't look anything like the blonde bombshell she would become later on. After the deaths of his wife and longtime lover earlier that year, 86-year-old Marshall was distraught. He first laid eyes on her on a night out, which his driver had advised as a pick-me-up. Vicki Lynn Hogan, better known as Anna, was a native Texan. In order to provide for her kid, Daniel, and herself, she left high school and took odd jobs. With aspirations of a brighter future, she had worked as a server at Red Lobster and Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken. As she danced to Chris de Burgh's The Lady in Red that night at Gigi's, Marshall was enchanted by her. He asked her out to lunch the next day. He warned her against returning to the club and gave her $1,000 before she departed. He began showering her with costly presents from that day forth. He showered her with diamonds and purchased a red Mercedes for her. He supposedly paid her $4,000 each month for her advice. Despite his repeated requests, she was hesitant to say yes to his proposal. Posing for Playboy in 1992 was her big break into the modeling industry. She was named Playmate of the year after that. Her career had already taken off by that point, but Marshall was adamant about marrying her. They tied the knot in Houston's White Dove Wedding Chapel on June 27, 1994. They were both in their 89s, but she was 28. The attendance was a meager 11. Anna sported a plunging neckline satin gown while Marshall sat in a wheelchair. The ring bearer was her son, who was 8 years old. Her first marriage to Billy Wayne Smith, whom she tied the knot with when she was 17 years old, had long since dissolved. This was her second marriage. This was Marshall's third marriage. After 30 years of marriage, his second wife passed away in 1991 from Alzheimer's disease. Within minutes, the ceremony had concluded. A picture session was Anna's last stop before the night came to a close. As he sat in his wheelchair, Marshall sobbed. The mental image remained with those who saw it. That was evidence of lack of affection in their eyes. The public saw her marriage to him as a monetary transaction. Marshall gave her millions of dollars in gifts before they even tied the knot. She had been gifted mansions, steeds, diamonds, and Rolls-Royces by him. Critics said she was too eager to get rich. Anna strongly refuted the federal judge's later claim that their relationship was driven by desire, greed, and need. Marshall, she stated in an interview with Larry King in 2002, offered her love and respect, which are more precious than money. Additionally, she said that she had repeatedly declined his advances until ultimately agreeing to help him out, all in the name of her desire to strike out on her own. A glitch, nevertheless, did exist. She claims that Marshall promised her half his money, but he never committed the commitment to paper. Not once was she mentioned in his will. Just as she thought she was getting financial stability by marrying him, she was about to discover how mistaken she had been. Just 14 months after they were married, on August 4, 1995, Marshall passed away at the age of 90. The subsequent court struggle was among the longest and bloodiest in human history. Smith thought her late husband had promised her half of his wealth. She was not included in the will of J. Howard Marshall, a billionaire who has a stake in Koch Industries, valued at $1.6 to $6 billion. Her story went something like this. He had offered her a portion if she would marry him, but his son E. It was refused by Pierce Marshall. The will, he said, was final, and she had no say in the matter. Jay, Smith's other son, was also involved in a quarrel. After attempting to seize control of Koch Industries, Howard Marshall III was also excluded from the will. According to him, his father had also promised him something verbally. He was bootless, just like Smith. Smith experienced financial difficulties in 1996. Her son's former babysitter sued her for sexual harassment, and she lost. The court ordered her to pay $850,000. She declared bankruptcy in California because she just couldn't afford it. With Marshall's estate being considered part of her assets, the bankruptcy court became interested in any potential distribution from his estate. A massive victory followed. The value of Marshall's Koch Industries shares increased throughout their marriage, and a bankruptcy court in Los Angeles granted her over $450 million in 2000. However, success was short-lived. A probate judge in Texas found against her the next year, declaring that she had no legal claim to anything. On top of that, he had her pay E. The legal bills incurred by Pierce Marshall exceeded $1 million. The matter was now transferred to federal court after two separate judges issued conflicting judgments. Her award was reduced to $88 million in 2002 by a federal judge. However, that was overturned in 2004 by a higher court, which ruled that federal justices lacked the authority to supersede state probate courts. U.S. involvement was necessary to bring the case to a close. The Supreme Court chose to intervene. The Supreme Court upheld her case in 2006. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, writing for the court, said that she may continue suing in federal court, but she did not get any financial compensation. Although she had made progress, her fight was far from finished. The Anna Nicole Show was an immediate hit upon its August 4, 2002 debut. People were captivated by Anna Nicole Smith's wild and crazy life, the life of a former Playboy model who had it big but was now floundering. The show had more viewers than any other E! program. That viewers were captivated by the show during its debut season. Though terrible, it has its humorous moments. The show chronicled Smith's struggles to adjust to life without stardom. She had been spending extravagantly for years and was now facing financial issues. On top of that, she was embroiled in a court dispute involving her late husband Jay, the estate of Howard Marshall. There were several strange, contrived moments in the program, such when Smith tried to train her naughty dog, or when she had an argument with her quirky interior decorator Bobby Trendy. In the midst of the staged mayhem, nevertheless, we caught flashes of genuine suffering. As her mother's life became a public spectacle, her teenage son Daniel frequently looked awkward on TV. It was a critically panned show. Many thought it took advantage of Smith's personal problems, and Jon Stewart labeled it an abomination. People thought she was drunk on set because of her slurred speech and unpredictable conduct. Producers allegedly fed her copious amounts of Red Bull to amplify her hyperactive behavior, according to subsequent reports. The program only served to exacerbate her problems rather than alleviate them. The Anna Nicole Show was on the air for 2 years until 2004, despite the backlash it received. By that point, many had begun to make fun of Smith. Her every action was covered by tabloids. Her 2004 MTV Video Music Awards performance was marred by an awkward entrance, slurred speech, and an audience-pleasing question about her attractiveness. Although the scene was staged for comedic effect, her apparent struggle was palpable. Prior to the broadcast, Smith's struggle with addiction had already gained widespread attention. Prescription medication use, including Valium and chloral hydrate, contributed to her 2007 accidental overdose. Rather of receiving assistance, she was thrust into even more public scrutiny due to her erratic moods and unusual conduct. Her son Daniel, who got caught up in the reality program that was making fun of his mom's suffering, even appeared uncomfortable at moments. Important news was announced by Anna Nicole Smith on June 1, 2006. She made the pregnancy announcement in a video that was posted on her website. Dannielynn, her daughter, was born to her in the Bahamas a few months later on September 7th. Even though Stern's name appeared on Dannielynn's Bahamian birth certificate, celebrity photographer Larry Birkhead disproved his claim that Stern was the child's father. Claiming paternity, he went ahead and launched a case. The involvement of 2 other males further complicated matters. Frederick Prince Faunenholt, who is married to Zaza Gabor, indicated that he and Smith had been an item for a long time and that he may even be Danny's biological father. Alexander Denk, who was her cook and former bodyguard, also made claims about being the father. Additional information regarding Smith's pregnancy added fuel to the fire as the paternity dispute gained media attention. She was 8 months along in her pregnancy when she was reportedly given methadone under a false identity. The California Medical Board launched an investigation, but the prescribing physician stood by his choice, stating that the medication was necessary. Ultimately, a court in the United States took action and ordered DNA testing to determine the truth. Tragic events occurred once more before the case could be closed. Smith was discovered lifeless in a Florida hotel room on February 8, 2007. The hospital was notified immediately, but by then it was too late. An overdose of prescription medications was the cause of her death. A DNA sample from Burkhead's body was urgently requested by her lawyers, but the judge denied the request. Preservation of her remains is mandated by the court until February 20th. The findings were finally received in April 2007. Larry Burkhead was found to be Dannielynn's biological father by a Bahamian judge. In order to bring her to the U.S., he wasted little time getting a passport and revising her birth certificate. Although Stern did not contest the verdict, he did raise one final objection. V. Arthur, who is Smith's grandmother, sought to get custody of her grandchild by appealing the ruling. In addition to denying her motion, the court also ordered her to pay her attorney's expenses. Burkhead returned Dannielynn home once the court fights ended. The harm had already been done, even if the paternity lawsuit had been resolved. Anna Nicole Smith's world came crashing down 3 days after her baby was born on September 7, 2006. Daniel Wayne Smith, her son, who was 20 years old, passed away while visiting her in the hospital on September 10th. He stayed after meeting his baby half-sister. He was found to have died from a combination of methadone and antidepressants, according to an autopsy. On September 21st, a death certificate was issued after a Bahamian jury concluded that it was an accidental overdose. Nobody was put in jail for a crime. Lakeview Cemetery in New Providence was the site of his burial on October 19th. Anna felt utterly crushed. Her closest friend and lawyer, Howard K. Stern, claims that Daniel was her #1 priority. Because she had brought him up alone, she considered herself to be his biological parent. She attempted to get inside his coffin when he was being laid to rest during the burial. Clinging on was her only option. When asked if she wanted to be buried alongside Daniel, she said, "If Daniel has to be buried, I want to be buried with him." Stern believed that she was already dead the day he passed away, even if her physical death occurred months later. In the midst of her sorrow, an unforeseen event happened. Anna and Stern had an intimate commitment ceremony in the Bahamas on September 28th. There was no license, only a symbolic exchange of rings and vows before a Baptist pastor. It was not a legal marriage. Although others raised doubts about the timing, Anna's Nassau-based lawyer ultimately stated that they needed a foundation to rebuild upon following everything they had endured. People magazine paid $1 million for the rights to use the ceremony images. Even more uproar ensued when Anna decided to stay in the Bahamas. Some assumed she was attempting to get away from the trouble in the United States, while others thought she was trying to avoid having her newborn daughter tested for paternity. Shane Gibson, the Minister of Immigration, awarded her permanent status at the end of 2006. A picture of an undressed Anna cuddling up to Gibson in bed was published in a nearby newspaper not long after. Gibson stepped down as a result of the overwhelming public outcry. On February 8, 2007, at the Seoul Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Florida, Anna Nicole Smith was discovered unconscious in her room. Her husband, an emergency nurse and bodyguard, both attempted cardiopulmonary resuscitation on her. Helicopters whisked her away to Hollywood's Memorial Regional Hospital, but upon arrival, physicians declared her dead. Her age was a mere 39. The inquiry into her untimely demise was initiated by Joshua Perper, the Broward County medical examiner. In his efforts to ascertain the truth, he collaborated with the Sano police and private forensics consultants. An accidental overdose was cited as the official cause. She had taken chloral hydrate, a sedative, 4 benzodiazepines, diphenhydramine, and topiramate, among other medications. Her system did not contain any illicit substances. Her bile included methadone, the medication associated with her son's death months previously. Nevertheless, as she had probably taken it 2 or 3 days prior, it could not have been the primary cause. The autopsy revealed other health problems. Before she started injecting herself with vitamin B12 and human growth hormone, she had abscesses on her skin. Virus enthesitis may have further compromised her health. There was no evidence of influenza A or B in the tests. And further complicating factor was that Howard K. Stern had been prescribed 8 of the 11 medicines that she had in her system. 2 others belonged to her psychiatrist, Dr. Christine Orochevich, and 1 to Alex Katz. Every prescription had been prepared by Dr. Orochevich, according to Perper's confirmation. The funeral for Smith was held in the Bahamas on March 2, 2007. A court struggle ensued over her estate. She had already signed her will in 2001, long before her daughter came into our world. Howard K. Stern was appointed executor, and her son Daniel was declared sole beneficiary. Dannielynn, her daughter, who was only a few months old at the time, was not included since it explicitly barred any future children. A home with a mortgage of $1.1 million was part of her inheritance, along with $10,000 in personal property, and a home valued at $1.8 to $8 million. The dispute over the inheritance escalated after her passing, including photographer Larry Burkhead, who was eventually identified as Dannielynn's father. V. Arthur, Smith's mother, sued TMZ, CBS, Entertainment Tonight, and a number of bloggers and journalists in 2008. Their goal, she said, was to tarnish her image by spreading rumors. She felt it hampered her attempts to secure visitation or custody rights for her granddaughter. When one blogger was arrested for refusing to turn over a computer as evidence, the case intensified. However, the complaint was ultimately dismissed. The media outlets were favored by the court. Despite spending her whole life in the spotlight, Dannielynn Burkhead has always refused to allow it define her. Anna Nicole Smith and photographer Larry Burkhead had a daughter in September 2006, but her mother passed away when she was just 5 months old. The subsequent media craze may have influenced her formative years, but Larry had already made up his mind. Away from the mayhem and stardom of Hollywood, he would provide a regular upbringing for his daughter. Dannielynn is now 18 years old and ready to take on the world with her own unique personality, drive, and self-assurance. Nothing remarkable happened on her 18th birthday in September 2024. She decided to have a Beetlejuice-themed party instead of a regular celebration. She donned a spiderweb print dress with dramatic sleeves and black lipstick, totally embracing her affinity for gothic glam. As she flailed her peace signs and characteristic mischievousness, she stood with an actor costumed as Beetlejuice. Larry expressed his deepest pride in a touching note that said, "May you continue to be humble and kind. I am immensely proud of you." She takes pleasure in the limelight to a certain extent, but her true obsession is with her studies. Inspired by her natural inquisitiveness and the elective she took in high school, she plans to study both forensic science and Japanese studies. Because of her lifelong fascination in solving puzzles and mysteries, forensic science seemed like the perfect fit for her. Meanwhile, her exposure to Japanese language and culture at school sparked a lifelong interest in the country's history, literature, and culture. Although she has not yet decided what she will do with her life, she hopes to leave an impression apart from her mother's legacy. She is an innately creative person who has never been afraid to speak her mind. Her acting skills have been recognized via her outstanding performances in school plays. As a one-time memorial to her mom, she posed for guest kids when she was 6 years old. But Larry made sure that was her only experience. Since then, he has declined any modeling offers, putting his daughter's upbringing ahead of any chance of stardom. Still, Dannielynn hopes to one day build a successful cosmetics and apparel company that combines her artistic vision with her passion for fashion. Together with Larry, she overcame the unusual challenges of her childhood to create a life full of joy and adventure. They went to a Duran Duran concert together, which was a highlight of their concert-going experiences. They also have a significant custom during Halloween. They bring their imaginative fantasies to life every year with extravagant costume concepts. Another popular spot is amusement parks. Daredevil Dannielynn won't ride roller coasters with his hands. She warns Larry, "Do not hold on to me," so he doesn't sap the excitement. Larry has done all in his power to shield his daughter from prying ears, since he has always valued privacy. During her earlier years, he protected her Instagram account and disabled internet searches on her gadgets. Simultaneously, he has been forthright with Anna Nicole's legacy, ensuring that Dannielynn knows her mother beyond the spotlight. Adding a whimsical touch, she has discovered her own method to maintain a lighthearted atmosphere. Despite their differences, she and her dad have a strong, trusting relationship because she enjoys making fun of him online and publishing embarrassing photos of him. Even though Anna Nicole died when Dannielynn was a baby, her memory lives on in the little things. For many, butterflies represent closeness. They serve as a gentle reminder that Anna is never far away. In Dannielynn's bedroom, there is a painting of her mother, which serves as a regular companion. Neither she nor Larry would budge from their 2025 stance of rejecting any and all conspiracy theories regarding Anna's death. We prefer to rely on living, credible sources. In January 2025, Dannielynn's greatest wish was granted when Hugh Jackman invited her backstage after his Broadway performance in response to sensationalized media stories. Larry knew just what to do to make her Christmas memorable. She had been his admirer ever since she was a tiny girl. He took her by surprise by giving her front-row tickets to Jackman's performance and, as an added bonus, a life-size replica of him. Everything went according to plan. Her enthusiasm knew no bounds when she finally saw Jackman in person. He made the night special by embracing her and praising her enthusiasm throughout a million fantasies. A video of the incident went viral. Despite everything, she is still a regular adolescent who also happens to be the daughter of Anna Nicole Smith. She maintains her forensic science studies, visits amusement parks, and uses Snapchat to remain in touch with pals. Still, she continues on undeterred by the weight of a family name that will live on in perpetuity throughout the globe. Larry is often in awe of her as he watches her gracefully handle everything. He occasionally remarks, "I'm amazed by the way she handles things."